Hello again, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Moderate Podcast for Saturday, April 10th, 2021. Yes, we are going to go ahead and switch days. I think we're going to stick with it, too. I think we're going to stay on Saturdays. I've been telling you that I've been recording the show early, and so I might as well move up the release date, too. So we're going to see how well that works out. In terms of our listenership and making sure people that still get the show that want the show. If it's too outdated for people once they listen to it, maybe that changes their mind. But I think they also want my feedback on different things. So, I mean, that's obviously why you're listening. You want to know my take on whatever the issue du jour that I'm talking about. So I'm assuming that people want to hear what I have to say. But anyway, I digress. We have a lot to get to today. There's a couple of small subjects, but our main subject today I want to talk about is Matt Gaetz. First, before we actually talk about the mess that he is in, we're just going to talk about some of his background. We're going to talk about who he is, and I think that really helps understand and puts things into context as far as the accusations that are being made against him. Again, I'm not saying the guy is guilty of anything at this point. But the fact that he is involved in some kind of crazy story with wild accusations shouldn't be that surprising given his colorful past. So we're going to talk about that. But I do want to do a couple of show notes before we get started. We are encouraging our listeners to leave a review on Podchaser. You've heard me talk about this over and over and over again. But now it's for a good cause. So even if you haven't really wanted to do it because you just, it just takes too much time, you don't really care about it that much. Now you have a good reason to leave a review for us on Podchaser, even if it's just to say we're doing a great job or that we suck, that I suck. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, whatever. Whatever you want to say. If you leave a review for our show, Podchaser will donate 25 cents to Meals on Wheels. So for every review that you leave on Podchaser, regardless of the show, it could be our show, it can be other shows as well. But if you're listening to our show, I encourage you to do it on our show. They will donate 25 cents to Meals on Wheels. And if I respond, which I plan on doing, to the comments, they will double that donation to 50 cents. So now you're going to leave us valuable feedback that'll help us make the show better, but also you'll be able to help us a good cause at the same time. So I hope you will check that out. So to do so, please visit our website at themoderatepodcast.com. On the right side of the page, if you're on a PC, you'll see the Podchaser link on the right side. If not, if you're on your mobile device, just visit the website and scroll down until you see the Podchaser banner. Just click on it, and that'll take you to our Podchaser page, and then you can leave your review there. And again, we will respond to them. And please do it not for myself. Do it for Meals on Wheels. Do it for a good cause. So I encourage you to do that. The other thing is that as you well know by now, we are on Podbean, and I want to encourage you to download the Podbean app to listen to podcasts, not just ours, but any podcast. One thing that I will say that they do a better job than Anchor did was with their app. With Anchor, you could only listen to shows that were hosted by Anchor, whereas Podbean is a universal podcast catcher. So you can actually get all of your favorite podcasts on there, regardless of whether Podbean hosts it or not. So I encourage you to do that. And I do want to point out that we were listed as a popular podcast in the government section of Podbean, so that was pretty cool. So it looks like our move to Podbean is paying off so far. So we're excited about that. And again, please check out the Podbean app if you're still looking. If you want to just try it out, see how you like it, and for all, not just for our show, but any of the podcasts that you listen to, you should be able to find them there. Now, on a personal note, I finally have some good news on our pool. Our excavator will be out on Wednesday to do the layout, so hopefully that means that the digging will start soon. So I will start posting pictures on Instagram and probably Twitter as well, just so that we can get all of our followers. And I want to just use this as kind of a personal way to, follow the progress of our new background oasis. But please forgive me for the first picture and the mess that our backyard is in. We bought it pretty much the way you're going to see it, and we knew we were going to do the pool right away. So that's why we really haven't done anything to the backyard at all. We haven't touched it. So, please give us a little bit of a break for how bad it looks, because it's not pretty right now. For all, there's weeds everywhere. It's pretty nasty actually, but that will start going away soon, and hopefully we're going to transform it into a paradise that we've been hoping for months now. Okay, now let's get into actual substance, things that you care about. I appreciate you allowing me to digress a little bit. One thing that I've seen pointed out in the whole COVID debate lately is the amount of cases, the caseload per 100,000 in the Northeast, and versus, and generally in states that have mask mandates versus what they look like in Texas and Florida, who've been very loose with those standards, actually have eliminated them altogether. So that is something to behold, but it's really not that out of the realm of possibility. And the reason being is that, they talked about all the people that were there for spring break and without masks, and they thought they'd see a spike in Florida. My question is, why would you expect that? Because most of the people that are in Florida for spring break do not live in Florida. So if they caught COVID there, along with any other variable, very, very diseases that you probably pick up during spring break, STDs, whatever, you take that home with you. You remember the line in Hangover, the original Hangover 1, where he talks about, I can't believe it's I think it's like syphilis or some STD. It's like, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but whatever STD he mentioned, that comes back with you. Well, COVID comes back with you. So if a bunch of people caught COVID and they primarily live in the Northeast, guess where they took it home to them with? You know what I'm saying? And they're saying, oh, it's in younger people. So it makes perfect sense that would happen. So I don't know why people are confused by this, or why people are claiming, oh, look at, Florida has everything open and they're fine. And well, yeah, it's because the people that would have caught it in Florida probably took it home. You know what I mean? Now, that doesn't explain all of it. I also do believe that some of the mask mandates are ridiculous. And so that is part of the problem. But, the other thing that they're saying, that they're claiming, the experts are claiming, because they are so confused by this, is that, well, they're testing less in those states that have mask mandates versus the ones that don't. So I don't know exactly what is happening. I think part of it is the spring break bump. I wouldn't be surprised by that. But even if the cases are up, if the hospitalizations aren't up, if the deaths aren't up, then what's the problem? I mean, that's the thing. Like, this disease affects people, disproportionately affects older people or people that have pre-existing conditions. If you have those conditions that that we are very well aware of by now, you should be taking precautions to protect yourself. So this whole thing about, the states that have the mask mandates or that have the spikes, people are claiming, oh, well, that's because the masks don't work. And as a matter of fact, they make things worse. It's like, no, they don't. That's definitely not what it is. But also the masks don't do as much as people want to believe they do, I don't think. And that's why, the numbers, in Florida versus California versus Texas really haven't been that much different in terms of caseload. So it's I think this COVID thing was going to probably do what it's doing no matter what we did. And the more and more I see evidence of that, the more I believe that, yeah, there might have been a few more deaths had we not done anything and just kind of lived life like normal the last year, but it wouldn't have made that much of a difference and would have been offset by all of the collateral damage that was done with all the shutdowns. There was an article that I saw come out that said that COVID patients are, one of the long-term effects of having COVID is mental health issues, which I call complete BS on. It's like you're reporting people that have had COVID and they, 1 in 3 are suffering from some kind of psychological damage. Well, what about the people that haven't had COVID, that have been locked up? What do those numbers look like? There's no context. They don't even mention that at all. And so it's as if you had COVID, therefore it affects your mental health. Maybe it's the lockdowns that have affected your mental health. Just a guess. Just a guess here. So I don't like this whole, the continuing doubling and tripling down on the narratives in the media is ridiculous. And that's why people are just getting tired of it. And I think that number is continuing to grow. And the number of people that are adamant about things are continuing to shrink. And we're going to continue to see that, I think. So we'll see what happens. Okay, so earlier this week, there was an article in The Hill that talked about the White House. So this says White House. Here's the headline: The White House says bills are bipartisan, even if GOP doesn't vote for them. So remember, Joe Biden ran on this campaign of unity, right? And we'll talk about that in the article in a second. I'm just going to read you the first few paragraphs. That'll give you an idea of what things are happening. The White House wants to change how people perceive bipartisanship, arguing that if they put forward proposals that are backed by Republicans and independents, they should be seen as bipartisan, even if GOP lawmakers in Washington don't vote for them. The effort took shape as Democrats approved a massive and broadly popular $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief measure with zero GOP support, and continues as the party increasingly looks poised to move another $2.25 trillion infrastructure measure through Congress just with Democratic votes. President Biden campaigned as a unity candidate who would work with Republicans, and the GOP increasingly has criticized him for turning his back on that vow with the big Democratic-only measures. But the White House has shrugged off the criticism, vowing to take big actions at a critical moment to help the economy and address inequality and other needs it says have been ignored for too long. So he was going to come in and be bipartisan, and of course, that was a very cute notion. But knowing how bitter politics are these days, and knowing the GOP, knowing how bitter their base is, that they don't really have to follow. Even if these do have big bipartisan support in terms of polling data, that doesn't mean that Republicans are going to stop voting for Republicans and all of a sudden start voting for Democrats because of these programs. They're not going to get there's not going to be a lot of change in terms of votes in this situation. Yeah, they may like different singular proposals. As a matter of fact, I've seen polling data on the infrastructure plan. They ask about specific parts of it that has broad support, but they don't mention other parts that probably don't. So yeah, you might have support for, 10, 20% of that spending, of that $2 trillion bill. But the other 80% of it, they don't care for. They'll poll low. But then if you want to use this argument, Donald Trump could have used the same argument, because it's not like he had zero support from Democrats and independents for most of his stuff. And that's the case throughout time. So I guess as long as you show some support from each party for a certain initiative, therefore it's bipartisan. That's what this is what the standard we're setting, which means that every single bill that has ever passed probably could be considered bipartisan by this standard. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And, now they're trying to change the narrative. I mean, man, Jen Psaki, she gets up there and is condescending and lying. And, for all the criticism they gave Kayleigh McEnany and the Trump administration, man, they are doing the same thing. And the press, even the liberal press, has started to somewhat push back on the Biden administration. And so it's kind of cool to see that, and maybe getting some semblance, but does that also just show just how blatantly hypocritical the Biden administration is being? And how much of this is Joe Biden versus the people that are working for him? And that's where the mental capacity questions come into play. I'm not suggesting that he's not mentally fit to do the job, but what I'm saying is that are his advisors getting too much of a big role in his White House? Is he not being forceful enough in his say, or are they trying to keep him on the sidelines? And that's where the wonderment is. And, because he's not, you wouldn't expect somebody that's been in politics for this long to all of a sudden change the way he is. You know what I'm saying? And I think that he hasn't. And I don't think that what they're doing is like really, really too liberal, because, like, for example, AOC wants us to spend $10 trillion on quote unquote infrastructure. And, people are criticizing this $2 trillion infrastructure package as being the Green New Deal. No, like, it doesn't go even close to that. The Green New Deal is closer to what AOC is proposing, which is $10 trillion. This doesn't even start to scratch the surface of it. Yes, it has elements of that, but it doesn't have enough to really make that big of a difference. The Green New Deal is a very, very aggressive, almost like you have to just pretend monetary policy doesn't exist. And that is actually something that AOC has said in the past, is that you could just print as much money as you want, and it really has no meaning. Not understanding that inflation's an actual thing. But, who knows? Anyway, I just thought that was kind of hilarious. Here's a sound clip I want to play for you. The headline from Jessica O'Donnell, she posted this video. She says, "Carbs are racist" is a new one. And this is where I get really irritated with some conservative commentators, because this is the quote. They quote, "Carbs are racist," end of quote, is a new one. Okay? Listen to this 30-second clip, and you tell me if that's what she's actually saying.
You can't get access to good health care, good insurance. The research says that black women, when we do the same diets as white women, we lose less weight and we lose it slower, even when we're following the diet, than our white women counterparts. And what public health practitioners think is that our stress responses in the body change our metabolism. It's literally that the racism that you're experiencing and the struggle to make ends meet actually means the diet don't work for you the same.
Now, that's not... Okay, so first of all, I don't agree with everything that she is saying here. I don't know the woman's name that is making the comment, but it is at a black women conversation type of thing. The entire audience is black. The panelists are black, so it's all African-American women 100%. In this audience. I don't know where this was shown or whatever, but I don't necessarily agree with... I do agree with stress. That is definitely a factor. Could it be because of dealing with racism? Could be. I don't think it's necessarily talking about intergenerational race and the effect that has on, we've heard about that theory, which my wife has actually studied a little bit. But where in there did she say carbs is a racist? That was not the point of this at all. Her point is that she's saying that diets that they don't lose weight the same way that white women do because of additional stresses in their life. Being more, being on average, being poorer than their white counterparts, which will lead to stress. Certainly will lead to stress. Now, is that rooted in racism? That's where that could be argued, I guess. And we've talked about the both sides of that issue on this program before. But people then commented on this post, and they didn't even listen And they're saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're even saying carbs are racist now. They didn't listen to the clip. She didn't even say that at all. So when people post crap like this, you're telling me that is racist because she's completely misleading her audience there. It's ridiculous. And it's offensive to me that she would do that, regardless of whether I agree with the person's stance that's saying this. But let's actually be accurate about what she's saying. Not that carbs are racist. And I don't know if she's just saying that tongue in cheek, she's being sarcastic. But the problem is, again, people don't even watch the video because they're like, I don't even watch this because I think it's ridiculous. I'm going to see if I can find any comments on here that would. I don't have time for that to do that. But bottom line is, it seems just ridiculous. And that's where in that kind of thing just really irritates the hell out of me. But so you may have heard about this. This is a video posted that went viral this past week. Has to do with Spirit Airlines, which, by the way, is, I hope they never sponsor our show because they are the worst airline ever. I mean, they are just god awful. They're terrible. I've had friends that I've flown them before. I've had friends that have flown them before. No one I've ever heard of has had a good experience with Spirit. I mean, you get what you pay for, but the actual service that you get on their planes, they should actually be paying you to be on their plane. I mean, that's how bad it is. So I was gonna play a little bit of this clip, but I don't know if you can hear it. But I'm gonna play a little bit of this clip to set the scene. Somebody's filming, a passenger's filming another family talking to a flight attendant. It's a family. It's a Jewish family. A man, woman, and a 2-year-old that's sitting on the wife's lap that is eating. So she's actually eating, okay? She's got her spoon. You can actually see her eating in this video. So I don't know if you can make everything out, but we're going to go ahead and try playing a little bit of this clip.
I told you, non-compliance, you will have to get off. I didn't want to do this. But you have to pick up your stuff.
What did we do?
I'm sorry. I want you off.
Okay, no problem. Just tell me what we did.
Non-compliance with the mask.
We're wearing a mask.
She's not wearing it.
The baby?
Wearing a mask.
A lot of babies are not wearing masks. I keep putting it on.
Wearing a mask.
A lot of kids don't wear masks.
Who's been sitting next to me? Was I wearing a mask?
He was wearing it the whole time.
Guys, was I wearing a mask all the time? Everybody?
I'm sorry.
But the kids don't. This baby's
I'll make sure he wears it. Everything's gonna be fine.
I'm sorry.
I'll make sure that they're wearing it, okay?
pulling it off.
Special needs child and a 2-year-old.
I understand.
Right.
I'm not my choice. It's not my choice.
Whose choice? Let's bring him
Why
in.
would you make
It's not my choice.
Right, bring him
waste
in.
time to do this?
I'm sorry, but she has to get up and you have to take your stuff and you have to.
I'm not.
So, and let me also set the scene too. The flight attendant is African American, and it's a white Jewish family. Again, the kid is eating, and they're saying that and remember, part of the mask mandate is 2-year-olds or under don't have to wear a mask. The kid is 2. Okay, so they're kicking them off. They're saying you're not in compliance with the mask mandate, and they're saying, hey, we're wearing a mask, and both the mom and dad are wearing masks. And she goes, she's not, and she points to the baby. Well, number one, the baby doesn't have to wear a mask, but number two, the freaking baby's eating at the time. And she's like, no, you have to leave. You have to leave. You have to leave. Spirit Airlines, you've got to be a freaking shame to yourselves. I mean, I didn't think you guys could already to sink to a new low, but man, you guys are just so. This is my comment I posted. Spirit Airlines was already a joke of an airline, but COVID has allowed them to take it to a whole new level. They are hashtag the worst. Hashtag Spirit Airlines sucks. Hashtag Spirit sucks. Hashtag just ground all of your planes. Hashtag embarrassing. It's ridiculous. I mean, I could not that just pissed me off so bad because it's just ridiculous. All right. Speaking of pissing me off, this is an airing of grievances show today. United Teachers of OLA, you know how much I love them. They're here now. They have their latest demand. Teachers unions across California say the need for educator childcare was a problem before the pandemic. Now, the United Teachers of Los Angeles is asking for more than that. The union is calling on LAUSD to allow educators with young children to continue working from home until the district can provide them subsidized childcare and a proper childcare program for teachers by the fall. They've got a lot of nerve. They have a lot of gall. As far as I know, they're still under an existing contract. And so they're basically, with the way I view it, is they are exploiting this crisis, this pandemic, to get an ask that they've wanted for a long time. And they said, well, if you can't provide that, then I guess we're just going to have these teachers work from home then. Essentially then making virtual learning almost a certainty for certain classrooms. So if I have a teacher that has a 3-year-old, I guess my kid has to stay at home. But then if a friend of ours has a different teacher in the same grade at the same school, but they don't have a child, or their children are growing up, or they're school aged or whatever, then their kids get to go to school because their teacher is going to be on campus. How does that work? How are you going to have some teachers be on campus and while allowing others to work from home? That doesn't make any sense at all. And they know that. So they know that since, some of them have to work from home, to be fair, you need to let all of them work from home, or you need to provide this childcare service. Basically holding the district hostage for something they've been asking for a long time. This is a tactic I have seen unions try to pull right now. You're in the middle of a contract. Oh my God, we've been doing so much extra work. Here's something can you do this for us, as a reward for working so hard during the pandemic? It's like, no, we have a contract that goes through another 3 years. Go pound sand. Come back to us when, your contract's up. Pretty simple. Here's Moema LeBlanc, who was helped supervise her San Jose kindergartners online learning for the past year while also working from home and caring for an 18-month-old. I support a lot of the things they're fighting for, but there's a fine line because the moment that it prevents our kids from going back to school, then it's not okay. These have been chronic issues teachers have fought for years, and unfortunately, the pandemic became the platform they needed. They know they can use it. Unions asking for childcare accommodations have found themselves playing defense, as critics are quick to point out that essential workers like healthcare and grocery store employees who never stopped working in person are also parents of children who are shut out of schools longer than families in most other states without the guarantee of childcare. So here is a quote from Maya Daniels, a LAUSD teacher. She stated this on an online petition calling on the school board to offer support to educator parents. Yes, we know the healthcare and essential workers have faced these challenges all year. However, a competition to the bottom is not in any of our best interests. We do not want anything we don't believe everyone is entitled to, employer support for children and families. Okay, yeah, but you understand that that's not a reality. Not everyone has this cushy union guaranteed job like you do, where you have tenure and it's almost impossible to get rid of you no matter how good or bad you are at your job. You understand that, right? I mean, they live in this bubble that, and I've seen this as a public employee, I've seen this happen where some people just live in this bubble and they believe they're entitled to so many different things when they have no clue because they've been in the system for so long. They're completely removed from reality of how other things operate in other parts of the world, in other parts of the economy. They have no clue, and they frankly don't care. And so, their attitude it comes off as they're better than people, and I hate that. I cannot. There's one thing as a public employee I can't stand. It's that. So it really pisses me off. The union is calling on the district to provide options to educators and for the state legislature and Congress to, quote, proactively work to provide better childcare support for all working families in California, end of quote, pointing out that women make up about 70% of the profession. So you're saying because more women make up the profession, that there's more need for childcare? That sounds awfully sexist and very old school thinking. I thought they were supposed to be progressive. That sounds like, the women are supposed to take care of the children? Is that what they're saying? That sounds awfully sexist to me. They want feminism. They want to argue equal rights and things like that. But when it comes to this, all of a sudden, because women take care of the kids, as if these gender roles, these are the same gender roles that they've been arguing for years that shouldn't be in place. And I'm supposed to believe now that I have to have sympathy all of a sudden because it's an issue that affects them. I thought that shouldn't matter. Have the husband should be home and taking care of the kids then, right? Isn't that the progressive thing to say? I mean, come on. I mean, we all know that's not the case, but you can't have your cake and eat it too. All right. Now, this is not the only thing that UTLA has set me off on. Here's another video, about a minute 20 seconds, from the UTLA president, Cicely Myrart Cruz, who had this to say in a weekly update back on March 25th.
We know that a healthy, healing, and racially equitable return to school does not involve stressful, high-stakes tests that are of little use during our distance learning reality. Throughout the school year, we have been working with our state and national affiliates to waive standardized tests this year. Sadly, the federal government has continued down a path that would require students, families, and educators to endure standardized testing after a unique year in education. Please allow me to be clear. Standardized tests have never been a valid, equitable, or reliable measure of what a student knows or can do. And they are especially unreliable now that these tests cannot be administered safely or with any consistency. The National Education is rolling out a campaign to cancel the test. Add your name to the open letter calling for all standardized tests to be canceled during the pandemic.
So again, here's another example where they're using the pandemic to take down something that they have never liked. You notice what she said there. Listen carefully. She says that the standardized tests will not be useful right now because of the pandemic and because of distance learning and the way that the methods that they have used to change, and also the reduced number of hours that education has taken place. Fair enough. But then she goes on to say that the tests have never been a good way to demonstrate a student's ability. But what she didn't say, and what's implied, is that they also should not be then therefore used to evaluate teachers' performance. And that is what UTLA cares about more than anything. And that's why they want to get rid of the standardized tests, because they feel like it's a way to evaluate the teachers and it puts pressure on them and they don't like it. So again, using the pandemic to try to get something that they've wanted for years. They've never liked these tests. She actually said that. And to me, that was a tactful mistake. In terms of, if you have a strategy, you're trying to communicate this out, don't bring up the past, bring up now. But then they've always said, she even said it, they've always said that these standardized tests don't mean anything anyway. So now, even especially now, they shouldn't be. But if you feel like they've never been effective anyway, then you're just using the pandemic to further your agenda, which is to get rid of the tests altogether. So you get rid of them this year, and then you're going to argue next year, well, we haven't had them 2 years in a row. Let's keep just why do we have to go back to doing them? And eventually that's how you erode away at it. So it's, again, never let a crisis go to waste. That is their philosophy. Good job, UTLA. Always looking out for our kids. Lastly, before we take our break, there is more fallout from the Georgia voter law. I think shortly after I recorded last week, they decided to move. Major League Baseball decided to move the All-Star game out of Georgia, out of Atlanta, and they moved it to Coors Field in Colorado. Now, this obviously created a lot of outrage from the right, especially. And part of the reason is because before that happened, the Biden administration, and actually Joe Biden himself, said that they believe that that Major League Baseball should pull the All-Star game from Georgia. And so the timing of that is a problem. Had that not happened, they may have a little bit better of an argument because they can say baseball did it on their own. They made this call. And so, if conservatives want to get mad at Major League Baseball for that, so be it. But the problem, and some of the things are arguing, it's like, well, you're moving it to a place that's more white. So that's actually more racist. Okay. All right. I mean, fine. We can deal with that. You're stealing you're taking $100 million, an event that would have generated $100 million for the economy in that area. Well, for one thing, they moved a couple of years ago to SunTrust Park. They were at Turner Field. Turner Field was in downtown Atlanta, and they moved it to the suburbs in a more white area. So the area where that would have actually been directly impacted. Remember, they're looking at Atlanta as a whole. The stadium is on the very outskirts of the city of Atlanta. I don't even know if it is actually in the city of Atlanta, but it's definitely in a white suburb. So let's not pretend that it's going to impact the black community in terms of the economy by removing this game. You have to remember where the All-Star game is taking place, and it's in a more white area. So that's number one. But number two, now conservatives are calling for a boycott of Major League Baseball. They're calling for a boycott of Coca-Cola because Coca-Cola has come out and made comments about Georgia's new voting laws. And, these were the same people that were railing against cancel culture last month when we were talking about Dr. Seuss and different things, right? And people, and they brought up the whole Chick-fil-A thing again and how Chick-fil-A is being boycotted and we need to end cancel culture. Cancel culture is ruining our society. And yet they are now doing the exact same thing. Not even a month later. It's like, you guys don't even remember, like last month you were just railing and crying about cancel culture, and now you're going to be all up in this? I mean,
You cannot be serious!
Come on, people. Like, get real, Now, one of the things they're criticizing is, and I have an article here that talks about that. So when Major League Baseball decided to move the All-Star game to Denver, it was a moment of celebration for many Colorado politicos. But the move quickly met a new conservative talking point. The states aren't that different, Republican lawmakers claimed. Governor Brian Kemp argued on Fox News that the change doesn't make a whole lot of sense because Colorado has equally restrictive laws. He and others pointed out that Georgia offers voters 17 days of in-person early voting, while Colorado has only 15 of those in-person days. And he said that Georgia requires photo ID to vote in person, or Colorado requires photo ID to vote in person. God, I can't read. Just like Georgia's new law. So hypocritical, Kemp said. Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, a Republican, posted a similar message on Twitter. Now, here's a major difference, though. Colorado votes by mail. Every registered voter receives a ballot about 15 to 20 days before the election. And instead of waiting in line at a polling station, the vast majority simply drop the ballot in a mailbox or secure drop box. According to the information from the Secretary of State, 99.3% of Colorado primary voters used one of those methods last year. So while it's true that Colorado has fewer days for in-person voting, it also has far less demand for in-person voting. Voters rarely encounter lines, and ultimately the result of Colorado's system is extremely high turnout, and that is true. During the 2020 general election, with the presidential election, Colorado had the second highest turnout of any state in the country. And so I think Georgia was somewhere in the middle of the pack. And that is with Georgia being a battleground state where much more money was spent than in Colorado, which was pretty much a foregone conclusion that it would be a Biden victory there, which it was. So far more money was spent in Georgia on campaigning than in Colorado. And that tends to increase voter turnout because people are more engaged. They see more ads everywhere, and they feel compelled to go vote. So even with that, Colorado still had a much higher turnout than Georgia did. So Georgia's new law moves the state away from Colorado's vote by mail approach, pushing more voters to show up in person. For example, under the new law, Georgia election officials can only mail out absentee applications to voters who individually request it, shutting down one approach to encouraging mail balloting. And voters will have a shorter window to ask for those ballots. Georgia sent out absentee applications to millions of voters in the 2020 primary, even if they hadn't requested it, to encourage absentee voting during the pandemic. Now, another thing that they've talked about is drop boxes. Colorado has one drop box per 9,400 active registered voters for the last election. In Georgia, the new law caps it at one box per 100,000 active registered voters. The metropolitan Atlanta area could see its number of drop boxes drop from 94 to 23. And instead of being outdoors 24-hour access, as many in Colorado are, the Georgia boxes must be inside government buildings and voting sites. So they talk about voter ID. Colorado does require some form of ID when voters register for the first time and whenever they vote in person. But the state accepts 16 different forms of identification. The options include common IDs like driver's license, passport, government employee ID, but Colorado also accepts Medicare and Medicaid cards, college IDs, utility bills, bank statements, and paychecks. They do not require identification for mail voting once a person is registered. Instead, the state mails a ballot to the person's home and matches their signature against the database when the ballot is returned. In contrast, Georgia allows only 6 forms of ID for in-person voting, and the state requires that voters provide a driver's license number, a copy of the identification card, or a social security number each time they vote by mail. Georgia does allow first-time voters in the state to use a utility bill as ID when they have not been able to prove residency when they first applied to vote. They also do allow for first-time voters to use documentation such as utility bills, bank statements, and government documents that show a person's name and address as identification. Again, as if they were not able to prove residency when they first applied to vote, but that option is only available for the person's first time voting in the state. The Georgia law limits on providing food and water near polling sites have become another focus of criticism. After the All-Star game was moved, viral tweets claim that Colorado has the same restrictions. Not quite, but it's similar. And the reason is because they don't want to have electioneering done when people are in line. But it also doesn't matter as much because, again, the demand for in-person voting is not as much. So the need you're not going to be standing in line for hours on end in Colorado. You could be in Georgia, but not in Colorado because most people are voting by mail anyway. And apparently they don't have a turnout problem. Their turnout is just fine. And as far as I know, there wasn't any allegations of fraud in Colorado. So there's that too. So I think that, again, people are criticizing this and the hypocrisy on cancel culture is really, really something else. So Anyway, I just wanted to give an update on that and try to kind of clear that issue up a little bit. Okay, so when we come back, we're going to talk about Matt Gaetz, who he is, other controversies surrounding him, and the allegations he's facing. So we're going to talk about that straight ahead. Do you experience digital eye strain from too much blue light exposure from digital screens? Baxter Blue glasses are not your average frames. These blue light lenses filter 80% of the highest energy blue light, eliminating 99% of glare. The past year, we have all been glued to our devices more than ever with all of these online meetings that we would normally be face-to-face. Our exposure to digital light has soared, and our eyes and our sleep have suffered as a result. I actually started using blue light filter glasses shortly after the initial shutdown started, and they have made a world of difference for me. Before using them, I would get headaches as the day wore on, and all the straining on my eyes were doing, but that went away once I started using blue light filters. Baxter Blue is also a force for good and provides a pair of reading glasses for someone in need for every pair sold. This is eyewear built for our digital age, and Baxter Blue is giving our listeners 10% off your next purchase of blue light, sleep, or kids glasses. Click the link in our show notes for your exclusive discount. This is the sign you've been waiting for to invest in blue light glasses. We know you will love your Baxters, and we know that you will feel the difference. Welcome back to the Moderate Podcast for this Saturday, April 10th, 2021. Glad to have you on board this week. And so let's get into this Matt Gaetz controversy. You probably have heard about this. It's been pretty big news, and it's been a wild story. But before we get into the actual allegations against Matt Gaetz, I think it's important to understand who he is. So we're going to kind of start at the beginning of his career, and we're going to kind of read through some of the things that he's done. He's a native of Florida, grew up in Fort Walton Beach, graduated from Niceville High School in 2000. I mean, that just sounds like a typical, white guy, rich, affluent person. Niceville High School. It just sounds so pleasant. He graduated from Florida State University in 2003 with a Bachelor of Science in Interdisciplinary Sciences, and then earned his JD from William and Mary Law School in 2007, and he was admitted to the Florida Bar in 2008. His father, Don Gaetz, he represented parts of Northwest Florida as a member of the Florida State Senate from 2006 to 2016, and was Senate President from 2012 to 2014. Now, after graduating from William and Mary, he went to work for a law firm of Keefe, Ankers, and Gordon in his hometown of Fort Walton Beach. Now, in March of 2010, following the Republican State Representative Ray Sansom's resignation on corruption charges, Gaetz ran in a special election to succeed Sansom in the 4th District. He won the Republican primary, and then he defeated Democratic nominee Jan Fernald with 66% of the vote. During his campaign, Gaetz received almost $480,000 in contributions, about 5 times more than anyone else in the field, and almost 50 times more than Fernald, including $100,000 of his own money. So one of the things that has always struck me about Gaetz is he just seems like, and this is probably why he gets along with Trump so well, he just seems like a spoiled rich kid, and has been privileged his whole life. People talk about white privilege, right? When I think about privilege, I think about guys like Gaetz, and I think about people like Donald Trump and Eric Trump and Ivanka Trump, who've lived in the, never had to worry about money, because Don Gaetz made his money in hospice. He started a hospice business and then sold it for $500 million, so $500 million. So that's how his father made his money. And and he's not stupid. I mean, he's a smart guy. I mean, he went to law school, passed the bar, so he's a practicing attorney. So it's not like he's a stupid person or anything like that. And he's earned what he's gotten, but again, he kind of still comes off with that bratty rich kid type of vibe. Gaetz ran unopposed for a full term in 2010 and also ran unopposed in 2012 and 2014 when he's reelected. And then in 2013, he announced that he was going to run for the state Senate, but instead chose to run for the U.S. House seat representing Florida's 1st congressional district. The incumbent, Jeff Miller, had announced 11 days earlier that he would not seek re-election. So he won the Republican primary pretty easily, 35.7% of the vote. The second place person had 21.5%. And this virtually assured Gaetz's victory in the general election because the first district in Florida is one of the most conservative. It's the most conservative, most Republican in Florida, and one of the most Republican in the nation. And indeed, he got 69% of the vote in that first election. So he was first elected to the House in 2016, the same time that Donald Trump was elected. Now, though a financial disclosure form Gaetz filled out in 2016 showed a net worth of $388,000, he donated $200,000 of his own money to his congressional campaign. He also resigned from two Florida House political action committees he had started and chaired. The PACs closed down and transferred $380,000 to a federal super PAC, North Florida Neighbors, whose purpose was to support Gaetz's congressional campaign. So he had to resign from those because you cannot be affiliated with a candidate. That is the McCain-Feingold campaign reform that happened, years ago. So here, after the 2020 State of the Union address, Gaetz filed an ethics complaint against Speaker Nancy Pelosi, claiming she had committed a flagrant violation of decorum and perhaps broken the law when she ripped up her copy of the State of the Union address. We all remember seeing that. And Gaetz has identified himself as a libertarian populist. He introduced some of the stances he has. He does support the legalization of cannabis, and he has been one of the few Republicans to be on that bandwagon. Of course, he's a big follower of Donald Trump. He called himself a proud Trump protege, and Politico called him one of the most enthusiastic defenders of President Trump on cable news. He's always on Fox News all the time. Appearing on The View shortly before Trump associate Roger Stone was sentenced, Gaetz said he would support a pardon for Stone. And then this was an interesting. So this is kind of relates to the story that he's involved with now. The New York Times reported in April 2021. During the final weeks of Trump's presidency, Gaetz privately asked for the White House for preemptive blanket pardons for himself and some unnamed congressional allies for any crimes they may have committed, though it was not immediately clear what crimes or people were involved. The White House reportedly never seriously considered the request because it was decided preemptive pardons would set a bad precedent. The Times reported aides told Trump of the request, but Trump denied Gaetz asked him for a pardon and noted that Gaetz totally denied the accusations against him. On April 8th, this just 2 days ago, Maggie Haberman of the Times told CNN's New Day that Trump wanted to defend Gaetz but was told to stand down due to the allegation's seriousness. On April 3rd, the Daily Beast reported that Trump said the allegations were really bad for Gaetz but could also be a smear. And there's other, he takes very conservative positions, although his stance on global warming is a little bit more moderate than some Republicans are. And he actually does acknowledge the existence of global warming, and he actually he joined the Bipartisan Climate Solutions Caucus. He introduced the Bipartisan Super Pollutants Act. So he does have some stances on the economy, very big with the NRA. Now, another one, and his stance on human trafficking. Gaetz was the lone no vote on the Combating Human Trafficking in Commercial Vehicles Act, a bill allocating additional government resources to help combat human trafficking. Gaetz later explained that his vote was due to his small government principles, believing that existing federal agencies could adequately combat human trafficking and stating that voters in Northwest Florida did not send me to Washington to go and create more federal government. Interesting that he would say that. So what is he facing now? This is an article from New York Magazine. The New York Times set the political world on fire a couple of weeks ago when it reported that Gaetz was being investigated for having a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old and paying for her to travel across state lines. Not only did he deny the claims, he went on Fox News to turn Tucker Carlson into a character witness and sketch an elaborate conspiracy to extort both him and his father, Don Gaetz, that the congressman says prompted the story in the Times. Gaetz points the finger at David McGee, a lawyer who worked on the case of Robert Levinson, an American taken hostage by the Iranian government in 2007, is now believed to be dead, and that has been reported months ago. This is actually 4 months ago that it was reported that he was believed to be dead, so well before these allegations have come out. McGee, a former federal prosecutor who now practices law in Florida, is accused of shaking down Don Gaetz through Bob Kent, a former Air Force intelligence officer who also worked on the Levinson case. The alleged scheme involves $25 million in cash to make the sex trafficking case go away and somehow free Levinson. So the Post reported that McGee and Kent learned of the investigation into Gaetz when they allegedly approached his father, Don Gaetz, who made a fortune in the hospice industry, as I mentioned earlier. In the timeline that Gaetz lays out in his interview with Tucker Carlson on Tuesday night, he said, quote, "Our family was so troubled by that, we went to the local FBI, and the FBI and the Department of Justice were so concerned about this attempted extortion of a member of Congress that they asked my dad to wear a wire, which he did with the former Department of Justice official." So there are text messages that maybe looked like this. The New York Magazine viewed a text message exchange between Kent and Don Gaetz. Kent outlined a scheme to help Gaetz defuse the scandal. "I would like to talk with you about the current federal investigation and the indictment that is about to be filed against your son. I have a plan that can make his future legal and political problems go away." Kent then supposedly gave a document to Don Gaetz at a meeting the next day, which claims that the FBI has, quote, "compromising pictures," end quote, of Matt Gaetz engaging in a sexual orgy with underage prostitutes. However, in exchange for $25 million from Don Gaetz, it would secure Levinson's release and a pardon for Matt Gaetz from President Biden. I still don't understand why Levinson is involved in this whole thing, because he's been missing since 2007. Around this time, a lawyer for Don Gaetz named Jeffrey Neiman emailed a federal prosecutor in Florida to confirm that the older Gaetz was working with the FBI. The prosecutor wrote back, "I can confirm that your client is working with my office as well as the FBI at the government's request." The investigation into Gaetz stems from the federal prosecution of Joel Greenberg, the former elected tax collector in Seminole County, Florida. Greenberg was slapped with more than a dozen charges alleging he trafficked girls for sex across state lines and forged fake IDs for them and himself, as well as stalking his wife. He resigned from office after being indicted and has since pleaded not guilty. And now, as we're going to learn in a second, he actually is working on a plea deal. Now, Gaetz and Greenberg were close. They posed for a picture together at the White House and apparently have several ex-girlfriends in common. So, now, it gets weirder. The House Ethics Committee said it has begun an investigation into allegations involving Representative Matt Gaetz, citing a host of alleged abuses, including sexual misconduct, the sharing of inappropriate images or videos on the House floor, and the improper conversion of campaign funds to personal use. Mr. Gaetz on Friday reiterated that he has no plans to leave office. "Let me assure you, I have not yet begun to fight for the country I love and for the nation that I know benefits from America First principles," he said at the Save America Summit at the Trump National Doral Resort in Miami, which, by the way, was Women for Trump or Women for, Justice, some women's organization, ironically enough. "I am built for the battle and am not going anywhere. The smears against me range from distortions of my personal life to wild, and I mean wild, conspiracy theories." The committee's announcement came a day after a Florida lawyer for Joel Greenberg, an associate and a political ally of Mr. Gaetz, said his client was in talks with federal prosecutors to reach a plea agreement over indictment on 33 counts including sex trafficking, bribery of a public official, wire fraud, and money laundering. Mr. Greenberg is expected to face trial in June unless a plea deal is struck before then. Federal investigators believe Mr. Greenberg met women online through so-called sugar daddy websites that connect individuals for dates in exchange for expensive gifts or travel, people familiar with the matter say. Their probe is looking at whether Mr. Greenberg introduced some of the women to the Florida congressman who also allegedly had sex with them, the people said. So the only reason that they would do a plea bargain with Greenberg, if he's being accused of all of these things, is if there's a bigger fish to fry. The only way you would get a plea deal struck is number one, if maybe the guy is guilty and there's too much evidence and he wants to reduce his sentence, but also, is he going to then turn state's evidence against someone else involved, i.e. Matt Gaetz, which would be a much bigger target, especially if he's even more involved and has other stuff on him as well. So this is a crazy, crazy story. I still don't follow the whole thing about the extortion. Number one, that doesn't prove his innocence. If he's being extorted based on a crime he didn't commit, then why wouldn't he say, I didn't do anything, so you go ahead and do whatever you want because I didn't do anything. I'm not going to pay you $25 million for something I didn't do. And the second thing is that why does Levinson have anything to do with this? Why do they care if Levinson is released? And he's dead anyway. But they're talking about, well, for $25 million, we'll make the case go away and we'll secure Levinson's release. Like, what? Who cares about that? If you're being accused of sexual crime, especially one that you didn't commit, why the hell do you care about a prisoner in freaking Iran that's been there for 14 years? What does that matter? The whole thing is just freaking bizarre. But it does not sound good for him. And so we're going to continue to watch what happens with this. And just a crazy, crazy case. And, I obviously, it's too early to tell whether the guy is guilty or not. This extortion story, it could all be true, by the way. It could be true that they were trying to extort Matt Gaetz's father. But that also might mean he committed the crime. It doesn't mean that one can't be true without the other. Especially if the crime is true. Why would you bribe somebody for a crime that they didn't commit? So they must have information. If it looks like they have enough evidence to show that this extortion probably did take place. And if that's the case, they must have evidence to know that Matt Gaetz is involved with this guy. That's just what it seems like at this point. So, man, what a crazy story, and this is just, I've been hearing about it. It's been big news in the political scene, but I wanted to wait a little bit to get a little bit more information on it. But it's just too crazy to talk, And again, I don't have, I don't care whether what Matt Gaetz's politics are in terms of why this is a big deal or not. I mean, if they're transporting a woman across a minor, a girl across state lines for him to have sex with, even if it's not across state lines, that's the only reason it becomes a federal case, by the way. Otherwise, it'd be a state case. I mean, and actually, it would still be a state case, because if you have sex with an underage girl in a state, I'm pretty sure, I think the age of consent in Florida is 18. If I'm mistaken on that, please let me know. That is a problem. But I've talked about before, if it's just about prostitution, right now that is illegal. I don't believe it should be illegal, especially if it's consenting adults. We draw the line. You draw the line when it comes to minors. I completely get that, and I completely agree with that. But I mean, prostitution is something I would never engage in, but that doesn't mean it should be illegal. Just like I don't think marijuana should be illegal. But do I have any plans to smoke marijuana? I've never have, and I don't plan on ever doing it. But that doesn't mean that I don't think people shouldn't be able to partake in that. We allow alcohol, which can actually do more damage. It just doesn't make any sense that, the argument's always been, well, marijuana is a gateway drug. It's like, well, why isn't alcohol? Alcohol is a drug too. I mean, you can't like have it both ways. I mean, alcohol is a drug. So the fact that we legalized alcohol but don't have legalized marijuana doesn't make sense. And I think prostitution should be something, because if I am a man and I want to pay a woman to have sex and she wants to accept my money and she's into it, what business of that of the government? Why should that be illegal? You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make much sense. But again, is it morally correct? Maybe not. And that's an argument. But morals shouldn't be what, in people's individual morals shouldn't be what dictates law. And that's the difference. And so that's where I tend to be more of a libertarian than anything else in those particular situations. I'm not an anarchy. I do believe in small government, but I do believe in government's role. And I believe government does have a role in our society. I think it should be more on the local level than on the federal level. And I believe in small federal government, but I still believe in like government-owned roads, and there's certain socialist policies that I do think should exist. But that doesn't make me a socialist either, okay? You can have it both ways, and there's nuance in politics. And I think that's where, in general, we get messed up, is that we just don't get that nuance on, you can look at individual things and say, yeah, it's okay for the government to do this, but they probably shouldn't be doing that. And, for good reason. And I've always said, for example, utilities, especially water utilities, should be government. They actually government, and you look at how private utilities are ran for water, government always does a better job. I'm sorry to tell you that. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but that is a situation where government does a better job. Just saying. So anyway, I think I've said enough for today, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up today's show. Thank you for joining us on the Moderate Podcast. Remember to visit our website at themoderatepodcast.com. Don't forget to click on the Podchaser link on the website. Leave us a review so you can help out Meals on Wheels. You're helping out a good cause, and you're helping me make the show better. So why not? Takes a couple of minutes, maybe. Take a couple of minutes out of your day. Do that for us. We'd appreciate it. Also, don't forget to visit the link in our show notes for those blue glasses, those Baxter blue glasses. Check those out. Again, those blue light glasses are definitely a life changer, especially if you spend a lot of time on a screen. I'm serious about that. They do a great job, and I use them all the time. So please check those out. So next week, we're going to talk about Biden's Presidential Commission on the Supreme Court. That came out late yesterday. And so we're going to talk about that next week on the show. So until then, we're going to start moving the show to Saturday. So until next Saturday, everyone stay safe and keep it real.